It's too short. I agree with that. We had T-ball yesterday because Skins was playing T-ball. It's towards the end of the season, so we've got like 13 kids on the team. I think 5 showed up, so it was like that time of year. The other time of year it is, it's Halloween's next Sunday. You guys know about that? Raise your hand. You guys still like dress up and go get candy from your neighbors. It's awesome. We're gonna be walking. Well, yep. Darth Vader and Hulk this year, I think, are the little kids we're walking around with, so that'll be fun. But speaking of Halloween, we're gonna play a game called. Ready? Here it is. Ready? Eat or Yeet with Halloween candy. So here's what I need. I am a super picky eater. I don't know if we have any other picky eaters in the room. I need like 3 more picky eaters to come help me with this game. Everybody's gonna play, but I need 3 people to kind of help guide the game. Let's go. Yeah, Cadence come up here. Cooper come up here. I want to get a high score, so let's go with Megan. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I need the 3 of you guys to face me, so you can stand right here in the front of the stage. You guys are gonna face me. Everybody else, I need you to stand up. Everybody stand up. Here's how the game works. You are gonna decide if this panel of picky eaters would eat or yeet the given Halloween candy. Okay? So we're gonna put something on the screen. I'm gonna have these guys vote secretly, so you guys can't look. You guys need to kind of do it really like super secret. So give me a thumbs up if you would eat it, and a thumbs down if you would not eat it. Does that make sense? Make sense? So get a little bit closer together. That way these guys aren't like peeking in between. So these guys are gonna decide what the right answer is. You're gonna pick what you think they are gonna decide as picky eaters. Alright? Ready? Here's the first one. Number 1, popcorn ball. Would you eat a popcorn ball? You have to decide if you think they would pick it or not. If you think they would eat it, go to this side of the room. If you think they would eat it, go to that side of the room. Let's let them get where they're going, and I'll get your answer. Would you eat or yeet a popcorn ball? Okay. All right. This side of the room says that they would eat it, they would not eat the popcorn ball. This side says they would eat the popcorn ball. The picky eaters have spoken. They said they would not eat the popcorn ball. You guys are right. You guys have to sit down. Tried so hard. All right, here's number 2. Stay up, because if you're still in the game, we're moving the game. Candy corn. Candy corn, yes or no? Eat on this side, eat on that side. Alright, candy corn is like kind of love it or hate it kind of a thing. I love candy corn, by the way. Candy corn is awesome. But you can't eat it like, you have to eat it now. Like you eat candy corn in July. The panel has chosen, they said they would eat candy corn. So this side's right, if you're on this side, grab a seat, you're out. Number 3, Smarties. Smarties. Just straight up Smarties.
What are y'all doing? I got it out. He's like 24. I got it out.
I'm in the middle. Here.
All right, I'll tell you guys this. The vote was 2-1 on this one. If you want to change now, you can. I'm not going to tell you which direction it was, but it was 2-1. Everybody good where you're at? You got one that wants to change. The answer is no, they wouldn't. Eat it. Megan would eat Smarties. Smarties is like when you're falling asleep in class and you just gotta wake up a little bit. All right, here we go. Caramel apple. Caramel apple. Eat it or yeet it. What would these guys do? Eat it or yeet it. Michaela would eat it. This is one of Michaela's favorite things. The answer is they would eat it. They would not eat it. You guys are.
Wow!
I think we got one more. Let's go one more. Tootsie Roll. Tootsie Roll. Looks like the 7th grade girls in this. That's Tootsie Roll. Would you eat it or not? Got 3 over here. Got 2 over here. Let's see.
Oh no, you eat Tootsie Roll.
The answer is they would eat it. So congratulations, you guys are the winners of Eat It or Yeet Halloween edition. Give it up for our Picky Eater panel, too. Congratulations. Picky Eaters, we should have like a support group or something for us. Yeah, when you go to Whataburger, next time you go, order your burger like me and Preston do. Only cheese. Preston, do you even get cheese though?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just cheese. That's it, plain and dry. Nothing
That's
else.
how it works.
That's how it should be. That's how it goes. All right, we have just a couple of announcements this morning. First of all, baptisms are happening again. I know we talked about this a few weeks ago, but we had enough of you guys that are like, hey, I want to get baptized too, that we're actually hosting baptisms again. And we've got like 4 or 5 students, including Maggie, who's sitting right here, who's going to get baptized on the 14th. Give it up for Maggie. Excited to celebrate that on Sunday, November 14th. So if baptism is something that you're interested in having, you have questions about, or you want to know more about it, come talk to me so that if you want to get baptized on the 14th, we can get that set up for you. We would love to celebrate that with you guys. Yesterday was Service Saturday, and so thank you guys for those of you who came and helped out at Love Where You Live. I know the project I was on yesterday morning looked completely different from when we first got there. They had grass that was like a foot tall that got all knocked down and then kind of cleaned out their backyard. There were places in that backyard you do not want to go because you don't know what's in there. And so it was really cool to be able to help them out and kind of clean up the backyard and make that a space that they could use for this lady who didn't have money to pay for somebody to do that. So thank you guys for serving with us yesterday. It was good. We'll do another service Saturday in the spring as well. We'll have some more opportunities to serve between now and then, so be looking for that. Last thing, I'm going to invite the worship team to come up so they can get ready, but last thing before we go, Noah mentioned this for the first time on Wednesday, but in case you weren't here, November 17th is our camp launch party. So here's the deal, in case you don't know, this is the night when we officially open up registration to go to student camp in the summer. So we're heading back to Louisiana Tech in mid-June again, but we are really excited to head back there for Generate. And if you come to camp launch party, if you get signed up there, then you get $50 off of camp. And so we don't only want you to come, but we want you guys to bring your friends with you on that night to groups. It's a Wednesday night. So just bring them with you to groups. That way, if they want to go to camp with us in the summer, they can get that discount too. This is a great opportunity for you to start talking to your friends about, man, here's what camp is, here's why it's fun. We would love to take some people who don't know who Jesus is so that we can introduce them to him. And we have scholarships available for that. So let us know if we can help out with that. But here's the deal, it's going to be a fun night for all of us. We're doing something we haven't done, and I'm not ready to give you all the details yet. You got to wait on a couple of those details. But one detail I will give you, we're going to go 80s theme night, so you can come dressed up. We're going to be bumping 80s music. That was fun. So it's going to be really fun. If you don't know what that looks like, ask the youth worker what that looks like. But not me, because I wasn't alive in the 80s. So,
I wasn't alive in the 90s.
Yeah, 80s camp launch night. So much more is our camp theme. And so we've got another kind of big surprise coming with that as well. So make sure you guys stay tuned over the next week or so for us to announce that. I'm going to pray, and then we'll jump into worship this morning before we head into our week 2 Not By Chance. Noah's going to be leading us for that this morning. So before we do that, would you guys pray with me? God, thanks for this morning. Thanks for the chance to come and worship you. God, for us to connect with each other and just lean into this opportunity to hear your word and how you have a plan for our lives, how you are ready to provide for us. So God, as we worship now, we pray that our hearts will be focused on you. We love you. Amen.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good.
We're going to stand. Becky's already standing. She's been to 8 million concerts on your own. Hey, we've been talking about this Not By Chance thing, right? And you can turn that music off and monitor, that'd be great. Yeah, the iPad, there you go. So we've been talking about Not By Chance, right? And so these Bible stories we get to are super cool. You read the story and it's really neat how God works things out, right? And we look back and we see that. But the thing about that is in the moment, it doesn't really feel like that sometimes, right? You walk through how many of you guys have walked through a really bad time, right? And when you were doing that, maybe you can look back now and see how God worked that out, but maybe walking through it wasn't great. Oops. So there's two things you have to remember when you're walking through something like that about God, right? One is that he's able to do things. Two is that he's good. You remember those two things? So we're going to sing about those two things this morning. Heaven and earth and the world was born. Light begins and ends in the dust you form. Faith commanded and the mountains move. Fear is oozing down to our hope in you. Unstoppable God, that you only go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Freedom conquered, all the chains undone. Sin defeated, Jesus is overcome. Mercy triumphed when the third day dawned. Darkness was denied and that stone was gone. Unstoppable God, that you love and go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Unstoppable God, that you love and go on and on. Things in your name, they shall be done. How many of you guys think I can do impossible things, right? Sing that. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God's unstoppable. Shall be impossible. I heard you singing, I got distracted. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God's unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God's unstoppable. Unstoppable God, that you only go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Unstoppable God, that you only go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. So two things. I learned this song way before it was on the radio. So if it's a little different, it'll be okay. So I grew up, like you get this picture of God from your dad. I don't know how many of you know that. So if your youth pastor's picture of God is messed up, some of that will be my fault.
Amen.
But when you're young, you get this picture of God from your dad. And for me, I don't want to be weird about my dad, but like I was pretty sure he loved me, but he was too busy for me most of the time. Looking back on that, there's a whole lot to that that's okay, and I'm okay with. But here's the thing. Your dad is supposed to be a picture of your Heavenly Father, right? And so when I became a father, I was like, oh, this is how it is. Once I understood that God loved me that way, it's so much easier to trust him. So this is an old song. You know it. I've heard 1,000 stories of wonder make your life. I've heard tender whisper in the dead of night and tell that you're pleased and I never know. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. Who I am. It's who I am. I see many searching for answers, far and wide. We're all searching for answers. Only you provide, because you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways to us. Love so undeniable, I can hardly speak. He's so undeniable, I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, love, you're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you.
God, I thank you for this day. I thank you that we can come and we can just worship together and learn more about you. I pray that you give Noah the words to speak this morning, and that you'll just soften our hearts to listen and just give us the willingness to act on the words. We love you in your son's name. Amen.
That's okay. Oh.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
There we go. It's not close enough to my face. Jippy to the rescue.
Take it to his face.
Every time. Okay, cool. Now y'all can hear me better. We don't have to scream as loud. How are y'all this morning? Y'all enjoying the, feels like second summer coming on? I was really excited for that flannel season, but you wake up and it says 90-something degrees. It's kind of disappointing, I'd say that. Yeah, so past couple, I would say, months since the summer and beyond until now, some of these illustrations have been getting out of hand. We've had Kyle's gas and then just Kyle's fancy gas.
Excuse me.
And Justin's arrow, and I brought the saw, so I brought a little something for y'all. I brought a flamethrower. Nah, I'm just kidding. Okay, I don't have anything for y'all today. I thought that'd just be funny. Maybe next time. But no, what I wanted to do today was we got a really cool passage. to go through today. It's actually one of my favorites, and so instead of taking some of that time, I really wanted to get into this with y'all today. So hope y'all will forgive me, but I think this is a really cool story that y'all really enjoy. So to kind of recap what's been going on, if you're new here, this is your first Sunday with us, we're going through this series called Not by Chance. We're talking about God's plan and the characteristics of that, how it works and when it works and why it works that way. And this is the second week. JP kicked us off last week with the story of Esther, how God's timing is perfect, and it may seem like a super coincidence that all this happened, but it's actually God's perfect timing. And how God holds time and he sees all time, which is like a huge theology of God. It's hard to understand because it's impossible to understand fully because God's so big and we're so small compared to him. And then God is never late. He's intentional. He's purposeful for when he shows up and how he shows up and why he shows up. So today we're going to be reading from my favorite book, the book of Ruth. And so if y'all want to go ahead and turn to Ruth, we're going to kind of bounce around. It's only 4 chapters. It's after Judges, which is towards the beginning, and then before 1st and 2nd Samuel. And so we're going to kind of talk about, while y'all turn there, I'm going to talk about a little bit of the context of what's going on, because it's super important to understand that, especially for this particular story. And so, although it's only 4 chapters long, there's a lot of stuff in here. It's a really cool story, a lot of attributes of God and God's plan and purpose, and in our everyday lives and eternally, how that works. And so the book of Ruth opens up with, in the days when the judges ruled, which is huge to understand because, see, the judges aren't people that we think of today, that are sitting on a podium with a gavel and the order in the court. They're more of military rulers and leaders at that time. And so, although some of them were pretty good, pretty alright, some of them were not, and there was a lot of lawlessness and kind of anarchy. People were doing whatever they want, whenever they want, really, with little to no consequences. And so we're kind of talking about this tough time in the world with the judges, and then we'll see why this story is so much cooler because of the world around him is so bad and so broken. And so, yeah, let's just go ahead and open it up. Let's open up to, we're going to start off with verses, chapter 1, verse 1 through 5. And it says, "In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the country of Moab. He and his wife had 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech." Also, I'm really bad at Old Testament names. So, and the name of his wife was Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Machlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites, I don't know. From Bethlehem in Judah, they went into the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left there with her 2 sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of one was Orpah, not Oprah, and the other name was Ruth. They lived there about 10 years, and both Machlon and Chilion died. I don't know how to say this. So that the woman was left without her 2 sons and her husband. And so, right off the bat, the first 5 verses is some pretty tough stuff, some pretty real life stuff, and it's not anything too crazy that we don't hear of today, right? A woman loses her husband and her 2 sons. That's pretty bad. Would y'all agree? That's rock bottom for a lot of people. And so this is something that we can kind of gravitate to, because we may know somebody who lost, maybe their husband and their son right after that, and it's a terrible thing, but it's real life. And so, kind of going on after this, what Naomi tells to Ruth and Orpah, because now it's just Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah. Naomi, the mother, the mother-in-law, tells Orpah and Ruth, leave from me. She basically says, I'm too old, I can't have another husband and then give you guys more husbands. She said, there's nothing to gain from you being with me. She says, go back to your parents, stay there with them because you'll be better off there. Because I'm an elderly widow and there's a famine in the land and her entire family's dead. So she's like, go be with your parents. Like, that's what's best for you. And so Orpah kind of nudges back and says no, and then eventually she says yes, and she goes on her way. That's kind of the last we hear about her. But Ruth says something really, really interesting, and you may have heard this before, because it's kind of a popular saying these days. So verses 16 and 18, Ruth says this. Do not urge me to leave you, or to return from you. Hang on. Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you. And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. So that's a pretty powerful thing from someone who's saying, okay, they were in Judah, and then they go to Moab, which is a foreign country to Naomi and her family, because of the famine that was in there. So they were looking for food. They go to Moab, and then her two sons marry Moabite women, which was kind of unheard of at that time or frowned upon. And so once all of Naomi's sons and her husband died, Ruth, or Moabite, says, you know what, I will go back with you into this foreign land. To her, she's going into Judah. She's a foreigner. She looks different. People are going to know that she's not from around. And she says, you know what, like, I'm going to stick with you to the point of death. Like, only death can separate us. And when you die, I'm going to die also, and I will be buried there. And so, kind of the word of the day, if y'all want to write this down now, is faithful. I'm going to be saying faithful a lot, and how it pops up, and why it's different in different situations. And so, Ruth here is faithful to Naomi. She's a faithful woman, and later on, says in a couple different places that Ruth is a woman of noble character. Like, ladies, listen up. Like, Ruth is the example here. She is the perfect or almost perfect example of a faithful woman and what that looks like, and a godly woman who trusts God. And a cool thing about the book of Ruth, because I'm gonna give you a little history right here. So the Bible is kind of organized in different sections and stuff. And so when it was the Hebrew Bible, when it was all in Hebrew, way back when, it was in a different order. And so where Ruth fell was right after Proverbs. So Proverbs is kind of in the middle now. But the cool thing about that is that Proverbs 31, the last chapter of Proverbs, is talking about what a woman of noble character looks like, what a faithful woman looks like. And then Ruth, the perfect example of that, follows right after that. Like, I think that's pretty cool. When I heard that, I was like, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool history for you. So this isn't just like some random story pulled out of left field. So after that, after Ruth tells Naomi this, they go to Bethlehem, just kind of on a whim, just kind of going where the wind blows them. And so they get to Bethlehem, and they find a man named Boaz. And so if y'all want to pick it up with me, in chapter 2, verses 8 through 12, it says, Then Boaz said to Ruth, Now listen, my daughter, do not go glean in another field, or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the men have drawn. Then she fell on her face, bowed to the ground, and said to him, Why have you found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I'm a foreigner? But Boaz answered her, All that you have done for your mother-in-law, since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you have left your father and your mother and your native land, and came to a people that you did not know before, the Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings have come to take refuge. And so he goes on and on after that, kind of telling her, like, man, I've heard your story from the people around, because I guess word carries quick in Moab and Bethlehem, but he hears her story and he says, you know what, because of your faithfulness to Naomi, because of your dedication and your loyalty, I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna bless y'all. Here's some food. Stay with some of the women that live here and drink this water. And so, kind of talking about God's plan, like I don't think it's kind of like how Esther. It wasn't just a coincidence that all these things happened. That they just kind of go to Bethlehem at random and find a field with Boaz in it, and he's like super nice in a time where, you know, he can do whatever he want, whenever he want. Like that has to be more than just a coincidence, I would think, at least. And so Ruth then goes back and tells Naomi about who she met, about Boaz, and all the things that he's done. And so Naomi's super excited, she's super pumped, and this is her response in verse 20 of chapter 2, and it says, and Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, may he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead. Naomi also asked her, the man is a close relative of ours, one of our redeemers. And so, this word redeemer is kind of something that's a big deal in this story. From this story, and then later on we'll talk about it in a little bit. But the word redeemer, the actual definition is one who compensates for the faults or bad aspects of something. So, yes, there's some bad things happening in Naomi and Ruth's life. They're having a tough life. There's a famine. They're starving. They go over to Bethlehem on a whim, and then Boaz is there, and he's giving them all these food and something to drink and stuff like that. And then back in those days, when there was like someone died in their family, they had a family redeemer, someone who would marry the widow and then have the land. And it says he was a close relative, not super close because it's still not that way, but it's Old Testament still. And so once they find out that Boaz isn't just some nice guy, he's the family redeemer. He's the one that's supposed to fix all their troubles. He's the one that's supposed to buy all these fields and take care of it and provide for them. So this is a huge blessing, right? This isn't maybe a coincidence. I would think not. So then Naomi goes on and tells Ruth, go to Boaz's house after his like big harvest party, you know, when they get all the crops in and they celebrate, and it says she tells her to when he's married, which means he's drunk, go lie down in his bed and ask him to redeem the family. And like that's kind of sketch for Naomi to say, but verse says, all right, and this is what he says. So in verse 10 of chapter 3, it says, and he said, may you be blessed by the Lord my God. You have made this last kindness greater than the first, and that you have not gone after young men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do you for all that you ask, for all my fellow townsmen, now that you are a worthy woman. And now it is true that I am a redeemer, yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. And so what he's saying there is like, okay, this is kind of weird, but yes, I am your family redeemer. And I would love to redeem your family for all the noble things that you've done. But there's someone closer to me that's actually a closer redeemer. So he's kind of second in line. And so he goes on later and he says, like, if it's the Lord's will, like we'll get married. I will marry you, 100%. He said, but if this guy if he wants to marry you and redeem your family, like let it be so. This is, you know, that's fine with me. But if not, like I will marry you as long as the Lord is living. And so that's kind of like 100% yes, I will do that. And so we're going to kind of skip back down to chapter 4, verses 14 and 15. And so it's talking about them getting married. The other redeemer kind of backed out. Boaz says, like, hey, if you want to redeem all this land and this property, you have to marry this Moabite. And he's like, nah, fam. And so he didn't. And then Boaz and Ruth get married. And so it says, then the woman said to Naomi, blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more than 7 sons, has given birth to him. And so after this is kind of like a conclusion of the whole story. And so I know it was kind of quick, but they're celebrating now. Like at the beginning of this, if you remember, another cool thing about Book of Ruth is it's symmetrical when it's written. It starts off with death and tragedy and, no hope, to life and rejoice and, a big party basically. They're getting married. And so if we look back at all of this, I know we skipped a lot, but it's kind of one of those things, kind of like Esther. There's no way that none of this could have happened without God's help in this. I think if Ruth and Naomi were just kind of going out without the Lord's will or help with them, I don't think that they would have came to this field and found Boaz. They may have had some way harder times in their life, and they wouldn't have been as successful or even found their Redeemer, right? I think that's part of God's plan. And so in our own lives, I think oftentimes we want to do things ourselves. I think we don't want God's help, and we think we can do it ourselves. But we can only see at the end of the story that we need God's help, right? Because once we're going like, oh, I can figure this out. God, if you just tell me maybe this one thing, I can figure out the rest. But if Ruth and Naomi said that, if that was the thing, if they said, God, if you could just help me find, this like some food to eat tonight, and then I can figure out the rest, maybe they wouldn't have found Boaz and the Redeemer, and their family Redeemer, and then have this marriage going on, and then eventually a son comes to them. And so one of the first points I need y'all to understand is we need God's help. We don't ask for God's help. We don't just depend on God's help. Like, we need it. Like, without it, we are nothing. We can't go anywhere. Nothing's going to happen. It says in James, all good and perfect gifts comes from above, from the Heavenly Father. Every good and perfect gift comes from Him. Everything else is not from Him. And so you can't have anything good without God's help in these plans. So that's the first point. And then we're going to go back to faithful. God is faithful. And there's 2 parts to this I want y'all to see through the story. And we'll get to the last few verses in a bit. So God is faithful in this story, right? God doesn't want you just to be miserable all your life, right? He will show up for you. If you ask Him to show up, He will show up for you. It may not be that day or that week, but He's got a perfect timing for you. Yes, there's some bad things that are going to happen, and sometimes God's got to bring us down to the valley so that we really appreciate it when we're on the mountains, right? And so I think that's what's happening here in Ruth, and it's all because of His faithfulness. He has a bigger plan for this, and He's faithful in Ruth and Naomi's life, but He's faithful in such a bigger sense. And I want to get into this next part, or the last couple verses of Ruth. So it's in verses 18 through 22. There's a lot of names in here. I'm going to botch probably about half of them, just so you know. So it says, now these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram. Ram fathered Amminadab. And then he fathered Nahashon. Nahashon fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz. Boaz fathered Obed. Obed fathered Jesse. And Jesse fathered David. So, David, that's a pretty big name, right? Slingshot, Goliath, King David, that guy. Yeah, that came from this story. This 4-chapter story, that came from God's faithfulness in this. And the big deal about David is that there's a promise made to him. That he'll have a son on the throne for eternity, which means that the Messiah was promised to be in the lineage of David. So from this story, this weird coincidence, this 4 chapters, which seems like it's not a super important story. Like without this, like it'd be pretty hard to set up the line of David, right? And so this is God's faithfulness in a much bigger sense. God's faithfulness isn't just in our own lives. It's like when we die, it's still going. His faithfulness and his plan is still going. He's got a plan for eternity. Kind of going back to what JP said about time, like he's seen the beginning, he's seen the end, and he's working in and throughout all of that. And his faithfulness is going to show up. And so through this story, God's faithfulness has provided King David to show up. And then 14 generations after King David is Jesus Christ, and the perfect Redeemer. And so God's plan for Ruth was way bigger than what she could ever imagine. God's plan for Naomi was way bigger than whatever she could imagine. And then, what about us? Do you think the plan that God has for us is what we think of, or do you think it's way bigger than what we could ever imagine? That's pretty cool, I would think, because I like to think I'm a dreamer and I can dream big sometimes. God's plan is way bigger. He's got a plan that's long gone, or long past when I'm gone, which is comforting and pretty cool to think that God, like I'm a part of God's plan. Like God has a plan for me and a plan after me, and His plan led up to me. Like it was working before me to this moment, and it's going to keep on going afterwards. And we just have the privilege of, being along for the ride. But when we're here, we have a hard time. I have a hard time trusting that, and then wanting to go along and do my own plan, because that's just the selfish, sinful nature of me, and maybe some of y'all I know. But there's good hope for this. Ruth needed a redeemer to compensate for all the bad things that happened to someone, to save her from all the pain and all the weight of the world, right? And so, do you ever just feel like you're drowning? Like you're in so much pain, you just need something, a redeemer, like Boaz did for Ruth, to take away the pain of the death of her husband, and then her brother-in-law, and then her father-in-law, all the pain of that, leaving her mother and her father to go to a foreign land. Do you think that was weighing on her some? And I bet, it doesn't really exactly say, but I bet Ruth was struggling some bit, I would think. I don't think she was all, meadows and flowers dancing around. I bet she was struggling a little bit. And so, again, it's so prevalent in our life that just the stress and anxiety and depression and past mistakes, and you just like, man, I just wish someone would take it all away. I wish someone would just take it all away. In this short little 4-chapter book, it shows what a redeemer is, and it shows the pathway to the redeemer to come. And so, I want y'all to understand that God's plan wasn't just to give Ruth a husband. And it wasn't just to give them food or security and safety, which that's great. God is faithful in that. But God is so much bigger than that. His plan is so much bigger than just us and our little lifetime here. Jesus Christ is our Redeemer. He has done the same thing that Boaz has done to Ruth, but in an eternal sense. All this shame and guilt that I feel that's weighing me down, this stress, this anxiety, this depression, whatever it may be, past mistakes that I feel tied down to, there's good news. He's the Redeemer. He's here to compensate for all the faults and all the bad aspects that's ever happened to us. He's here to take it all away and save us and make things better. Give us joy, give us hope again, give us peace and rest in him. And so that one day, because of this great plan that's been going on since the beginning of time until the day we walk with him again, it's faithful, and he wants us to be with him. And so all you really have to do is just surrender to that and just let that happen. You know, when we see God's plan in like the book of Ruth and Esther and some of these other stories we're going to hear, like you're like, wow, that's like, God is so cool. He's so, like, it sounds like a coincidence, but it's not. It's perfect timing. I want to be a part of that. But when we're in that, it's like, all you have to do is just surrender to him. And then Jesus, the Redeemer, is going to take away all the mess that's in your life so that there's peace and hope and rest in him. And so, before you leave, if you're not sure if you've done that before, if you're not sure you're completely surrendered, or you're struggling with something, or God's plan, and you're not sure, like something's tough at home, like talk to somebody here. Talk to me, talk to JP, talk to any of these workers here. Like, this isn't just some spiel or some objective that we're trying to tell you from a church perspective. It's because it's happened to us. Like, we've been through this. We've been through mess, and we finally surrendered to him, and life has been so much sweeter with him. So please talk to somebody. He's the perfect Redeemer, and I can testify to that. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and pray us out, and then we'll kind of, JP will break us out into groups. So, Father God, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this opportunity for all of us to come together. God, I thank you for your plan. I thank you that you're faithful and that you show up, God. And although it may not be times when we think that we want you to show up, but you show up in such a bigger and better, more perfect way, God. We thank you for that. God, we need your help. We pray that you just are with us every step of the way through these times and these trials, God, that you're with us. And God, we thank you for your son, Jesus, for the ultimate sacrifice he did to redeem us as long as we surrender to you. And God, I pray that if there's any students in here this is weighing on their hearts right now, God, that they would be bold and speak up and tell somebody and ask questions that they get to know you more, God. Lord, I pray that you keep us safe and you protect us throughout the rest of this week, and we love you. Amen.
Amen. It's a good word this morning. God is eternally faithful. And here's the thing in that, right? Like, people aren't that. People aren't faithful that way. It's crazy to look at Ruth and how she was faithful to Naomi, but man, God is so much more faithful than that. God will never fail. So, man, we do want to challenge you to place your trust in that. If you haven't, come and talk to us about that, because Jesus is the Redeemer that you need. So this morning, we want you guys to continue this conversation through some questions. So we're going to ask you to get in groups of about 10, find a room, or stay in here. If you're new this morning and you don't know where to go or have a group of friends to jump in with, come see me. We'd love to help you get there. Youth workers, if you don't have those questions yet, I've got some here, so come grab them for me. All right, go.